Welcome to our first post-lottery mock draft here as we are on home base once again on a Tuesday on the PHLY Sixers podcast. We have our first post-lottery mock draft, and it's going to be a fun one. It's not just a two-person draft this time around, only for the lottery. We have the entire first round, and that will be, of course, with Derek Bodner, Kon Knueppel, and myself. I'm Devon Gibbons, president of basketball ops. Bree is here as well. I think Kyle has a little help there with some executive choices there in his office.
Assistant also, GM Louis the English Bulldog is alongside me today.
Correct. And I'm sure Derek also has some help there as well. I'm running solo. I don't have the pets, so I'm running solo on this one. There you go. Look at that. You got an executive there helping out. Assistant director to the player personnel there for Derek Bodner. And we're going to have some fun here. I'm sure as the picks come up, all of you in the chat will throw in the players you believe should be selected at whatever spot it would be. And also, I'm pretty sure you're wondering, well, since Devon had the pick the last time in the pre-lottery draft when Kyle and I did it, who's going to be picking for the Sixers today at pick number 3? We'll give that to you as well. Here
we're just going to let Devon do it every time, Tuesday. So that way we don't get the backlash.
I didn't get backlash last time, so that was a good one, right?
Well, no, because you picked the person that no. Well, you weren't at third.
That was
you weren't
at
third. Yeah,
that was at 6. Yeah, that was at pick number 6. Yep. So that one went over pretty well. Now we'll see how it goes today at pick number 3. So without further ado, we'll get to some other things a little bit later on. The Western Conference playoffs get underway tonight, game number 1. We'll give our preview for that on the back end of the show, see who we feel is going to take that one and advance to the NBA Finals. And if we have time, maybe we'll do the Eastern Conference today or wait until tomorrow as well. So without further ado, we know the order. We know the first overall selection. But who's first overall for the Dallas Mavericks for us here on the PHLY first round edition mock draft?
It's me.
There you go. Kon Knueppel with the number 1 overall pick.
GM Nico Knueppel, I think, or Kyle Harrison, or however you want to know. So, I mean, look, there's not really any debate here. And there'll be people who try to turn this into some sort of discussion in the weeks ahead, and will say things like, hey, they traded Luka Doncic. They could do anything. But it's just such an easy march up to the podium. We're drafting Cooper Flag. You get the best prospect in the class. You get the guy who fits, frankly, the model that Nico Harrison's been talking about, right? Like he loves guys that defend and play both sides of the ball. Cooper Flag is that. I will say one thing about Cooper Flag, and it's not as much about him as it is word usage. Can we retire use of the word generational for a bit? Because you can't, by definition, Victor Wembanyama can't be a generational prospect, and then 2 years later you have another generational prospect, and then the next year you have another generational prospect. And that's not saying that any of these guys are not exceptional basketball players, but it's up there with, we can hang it in the rafters alongside the words irony, literally, and many other words that have been bastardized in modern English lexicon. So Cooper Flag at number 1, and we retire the word generational alongside the pick. That's the position of the Dallas Mavericks officially.
What a generational rant from Kyle Knueppel.
I wouldn't even call that like a once in a decade rant from me. That's more like a once a month rant. But anyway, who's on the clock at 2? San Antonio Spurs.
And that would be me. I'm going with the San Antonio Spurs, and with a lot of discussion, a lot of discussion here as I see, you know what, I'm just recruiting a personnel person for me, player personnel guy in my department. I'm just going right mid since he's in there, and he's saying trade at number 2. Unfortunately, we did not get the trade offer that we liked at number 2. Giannis and the Bucks did not come calling. So we're just simply going to stick here at the pick, and the Sixers will continue to be where the draft really starts, because we're just going to make this one simple and go with Dylan Harper. And we'll worry about all the guards that we have later at a later date, because it's a very good problem to have right now with another another rookie of the year in Steph Castle, De'Aaron Fox now in the fold for a full season. And we have Dylan Harper right there in the mix as well as we select him with the number 2 overall pick. Yes.
Pretty easy. I think the first 2 picks, we could be surprised by the Spurs somehow, and maybe they get involved in trade talks in real life. But if you're just saying we're sitting here and picking, these are by far the 2 easiest picks in the whole class.
Look, we would never admit this publicly, but we listened to all offers with this pick. We're a little disappointed we didn't get a chance to. We talked about trading up. We talked about trading down to get more assets. But at the end of the day, in large part because we have 60 minutes to do a 30-minute or a 30-pick mock draft, so we don't have time to really get into trades. We are sticking at number 3, and we are taking VJ Edgecombe. We just cannot.
Wait, hold on, Derek. You faded out as soon as you said it. It was like,
no, my camera is doing some weird stuff with focus. I apologize about that. We just believe in him more than we believe in Ace Bailey. We are not convinced Ace Bailey actually has the kind of sub-generational but star level offensive upside that a lot of people believe that he does. We are intrigued by his high volume, 3-point shooting, his potential to be a 3-and-D player at his size and archetype, which is very rare, tough to find, but all of the intangibles favor Edgecombe. We believe that his defense is going to translate. We would love it if he was a little bit taller so we could defend a 3. But at the end of the day, if we have too much talent at the guard position, we are happy to deal with that. We have a lot more confidence in VJ. We believe in that catch and shoot shot. We hope that he can grow a little bit off the dribble, but even if not, we think he's going to be an A+ defender who's going to be a little bit more effective in the NBA because of the spacing, a little bit better at getting to the rim. And we believe he's going to be one of the better 2-way guards in this draft. So we are going Edgecombe at 3.
All right, so we can stop pretending to be GMs for a second, right? To at least discuss this one, since it is the Sixers pick and this is a Sixers show. Devon, you are the pro, at least the face of the pro Ace crowd in this chat. Although I view these guys as fairly close in terms of the rankings and whatnot. Why is Derek wrong?
Well, for me, and this one, and wrong in taking VJ over Ace in this case, is just simply when we've discussed the fact that they need more wings, more length, more offense, quite frankly. And we've talked about them defensively in the past, and VJ Edgecombe certainly fits the bill there for this selection where they needed help defensively. I just thought that the Ace pick right here for Derek as the GM just made sense because of the offensive punch that it gives them there. Sure, Jared McCain added some offense. We know Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Paul George. But with the unknown for right now, with both of them for the offense, is Joel Embiid going to take a step back offensively? Is Paul George going to look to get his a little bit more offensively? And beyond him, as much as we've liked Justin Edwards and even Quentin Grimes, should they bring him back on the contract extension, I just thought the offensive punch here, the 6'8", 6'9" length that we heard the president of basketball operations, Daryl Morey, talk about, and bringing some more of that length and athleticism there for the Sixers. Just thought that would be the right pick here at this time over VJ Edgecombe for the Philadelphia 76ers in particular. And also just adding, not caring what Charlotte, Utah, Washington has right there for their culture, but the culture here. If there are any concerns about cultural things that we've discussed on the show that even Kyle, you brought up on Monday's show as well, is that this veteran situation here with the Sixers, with the players that they have, shooting for a postseason right now and trying to finish off the Joel Embiid era the right way, just thought that Ace Bailey would add to that mix right here for the Sixers.
So I will just chime in less with some analysis of the players and more with what I think the Sixers would do. This is not, don't hold me to this. There's a lot of time, over a month left before the draft. If you were to ask me to rank the likelihood of outcomes today, I think the 2 most likely outcomes are sitting here and taking VJ and trading back into somewhere in the 4 to 8 range picking up something extra, whether that's a pick, whether that's a player. We've talked about Herb Jones in New Orleans, talked about, Utah, the Nets, some of these other teams, some form of trade back with them and picking up extra capital. And then I would rank taking Ace after those. Now, I wouldn't say any of those potential outcomes are like huge majorities. Like there's not one where it's like, 80% they're going to do this. I think it's probably 40, 20, 20, 20 with 4 different outcomes, right? Did I get that right? 40, 20, 20. Yeah, I can still do math. So I think if there's a leader, and if the leader is taking VJ, I think that would be slight. That would be based on their general track record of the types of players they draft, the type of people that they bet on. And then the trade back, I think, is just the natural outcome of landing at 3 and the evals on Ace being kind of all over the place around the league. Like there are some teams that value him very highly, and there are other teams that are not touching this kid until probably 9, 10, even outside the top 10. So it really is up in the air as far as I can tell from, on the reporting and intel side. And I need people to understand, like there are a lot of people who are just gung-ho on one player or another. Nothing is set in stone, right? This is a 2-player draft is the view of most of the league. And after that, it is very much an eye of the beholder thing. So anyone who's like, you have to take Ace here, that's not the view of most of the NBA, right? It is just, you talk to scouts, you talk to executives, you talk to whoever. That is not how people view this draft. You may think that's what it is because of how it's talked about publicly, but this is a very fluid draft after 2. And the Sixers basically control the keys to how this board and how this draft is going to unfold. So they have a lot of say and a lot of power. So Derek taking VJ, although it's not going to please the Ace heads around here,
no,
that is a pretty likely outcome on draft night.
So here's what I'll say. Because I will, even though I've thrown a lot of cold water on, I don't really think Ace has much realistic star probability. Like 95th to 100th percentile outcome. I believe that, like, sure, he can be maybe developed into that, but I think most outcomes he is not a star. He is a elite offensive role player, and if he reaches like 80, 85, 90%, like one of the best development outcomes he can have, that's sub-star, he can end up providing more value than most of the guys play here. Even if he doesn't reach star potential, because of that catch and shoot, I believe can be elite, because I see the off-ball shooting. If he can figure that out, limit his mistakes, and become just a complete demon defensively, because of size, archetype, scarcity, he could end up being from the 80th percentile on, he could end up being the best pick here at 3. But I think 0 to like 80 percentile, I think there's a lot more risk in his archetype than people give him credit for. Like, I don't necessarily see him as a low floor player. And I think it's going to take a lot of development for him to become a really plus offensive player. It concerns me, his lack of handles, his lack of burst, his touch at the rim, obviously his processing and his passing, in large part because it leads him to some really bad shots, not because I think he's necessarily, selfish or anything like that. But I think he gets himself in a situation where he just doesn't see his way out of. And because of that, there is, I think, some real risk in his, development that people aren't necessarily giving it credit for. He's a pretty big boom or bust kind of guy for me, even though I do see a pathway where he can be a very valuable player, even if he doesn't reach that star offensive upside. So I just think there's so much for him to overcome. And it's not just the recognition and the awareness. It's not just the passing. It's the first step. It's the handle. It's the advanced moves. I think there is, like I said, a tremendous amount of risk, even if the archetype itself, not for fit. I don't really care about fit right now, because quite frankly, by the time you're relevant, if Joel Embiid's done being an MVP candidate, the roster that's going to be, the team that's going to be relevant is going to be completely different than the roster you have right now. I think fit right now is the last thing we can really focus on. But it's just the scarcity of the archetype. That is the one thing that makes me not fully out on Ace, but I'm not at a point where I can take him right now.
All right. Let's round out the top 5 before we hit our break. Kyle and I will be up next after VJ Edgecombe goes to the Philadelphia 76ers. Derek Bodner selecting VJ Edgecombe You are cup check right now for the Charlotte Hornets at pick number 4. Ace Bailey still available for the Hornets and LaMelo Ball.
So I will be transparent. There is a part of me that would think about taking a Trey Johnson here. That goes away when I think about Trey Johnson and LaMelo Ball as a defensive backcourt. I think that's just you might score 120 points, but you also might give up 130 a game. So I do think, like, I have Ace, or I've had Ace at 4 on my board for, it was in our boards that we did when we did our big boards. And I think I'm just taking Ace here and saying that, despite the offensive concerns, I think if he plays with a pretty ball dominant guy in LaMelo, but a ball dominant guy who is a big time shot creator, like very creative passer, someone who's going to find him all over the floor, there is at least a decent opportunity to get him taking the type of shots and playing the type of offensive role that I think you want him in to start. I like Charles Lee. Like, I think he's a good coach. I think that's a guy that is going to demand buy-in from him. And I think defensively is where I feel good about Ace right now. At least, like, I don't think he's going to come in and be a impact defender day one. But I think at the very least, because of the physical tools, he's going to be a good defensive rebounder from day one. I think he's going to have the flashes as a rookie, right? Somebody who can be a weak side rim protector, has some switchability, has good tools, right? Like, he's not a nuclear athlete, but I think he's a good to very good athlete, depending on how you're grading him out. And so I think between the willingness to defend he showed there, the rebounding ability, the shot making, there's a little bit of overlap with Brandon Miller, and they have to figure that out. But at this point, because of how close everything is, and because I view him as at least an upside bet on a team that has been going nowhere for a long time, I'm just taking him, and I'm not thinking too hard about it.
All right. Ace Bailey to the Charlotte Hornets. I'm up next, and I am pick number 5. I'm Danny Ainge and the Utah Jazz here. And I'm going with, at this particular spot, since he is still there, Trey Johnson at pick number 5. They have gone Keontae George, Isaiah Collier on the back end of the first round of the season to go. 2 years ago, Keontae George. And with that, I think that the Utah Jazz just simply have not yet found their guard. And it doesn't necessarily mean that he is going to be the face of their franchise going forward, of course, with Lauri Markkanen still there. But because of his scoring ability, being able to play alongside Collier and George for this basketball team, I just thought that Trey Johnson, with his great measurements there at the combine as well, the belief that Hardy and that coaching staff can continue to develop some of these young players, and he might be the one that breaks through. I'm going with Trey Johnson to the Utah Jazz at pick number 5.
All right, I think we're going to have one here. Oh, go ahead.
Well, let's take a pause. Derek and Washington are on the clock at pick number 6 with a lot of talent left available. And Derek will select for I don't even know who their front office is right now, to be off the top of my head, to be honest with you. So Derek is the front office for the Washington Wizards. When we get back, it's our full 30 mock draft post lottery. Sixers at 3, VJ Edgecombe, and we're going to continue to go along through the rest of the 30 right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. And I need to tell you, good folks, about my great people at Parks Casino. I've been telling you so much about the app, which you should, in fact, go check out. First of all, it's the Bet Parks app. Please go and check it out. But I also want to mix in, because this is about that time also where the weather is good. You want to get out and hang out with some friends and some family. You want to go to a great, great spot to do so. And that's the Excite Center at Parks Casino. And it's one of the many things that I do love about Parks Casino, which is the casino of my choice. Parks Casino in Pennsylvania, #1 casino, and it's close to Philadelphia, located in Bensalem. Take the Street Road exit. That's all you have to do off of I-95 and the PA Turnpike. Bang a left, bam, and you just straight shot right up to Parks Casino, which will be directly on your right. And the Excite Center is the state-of-the-art entertainment venue located inside Parks Casino, named one of the best places to see the country's best comedians and music headliners as well. You got the great Bill Murray later in the year in the fall that will be at Parks Casino. You don't want to miss it. You know Bill for his movies, his comedy routines, all of that, and his son, an assistant coach for the UConn Huskies. Well, did you know he plays music? Well, he does that, and he will be at Parks Casino later in the year. And you got to do that by visiting parkscasino.com to buy all the tickets for all the shows. Check out the full list. Pre-game the shows at their amazing beer garden as well. Play some pop culture slots, roulette cards, and other table games you love while you wait. Parks Casino, this is how you win. You must be 21 and over. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
And guys, we've talked to you a little bit about our new friends from Art of Words. And I know they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. This local artist who's from Philly proves it. I know you guys have seen these pictures, this artwork all over the place. My family has a couple, a Phillies one, an Eagles one, but it isn't just sports, and it's not just local to Philadelphia. There are lots of landmarks that they've shown. Like I have a really nice Reading terminal that Art of Words made, because I love the Reading terminal market, and seeing it constructed as a picture that's assembled by words is a really, really cool thing. These are unforgettable gifts for sports fans, grads, housewarmings, Mother's Day, Father's Day, any occasion. This guy is a local guy, though. He started selling art at the K-Lot, Rice's flea market, where I got myself into some trouble as a kid back in the day. He credits Philly fans for launching his career, and it's available for dozens of teams and cities. There's something for everyone. These pieces are total conversation starters. You spot a name, then another, and then everyone's reliving all their favorite sports memories, the games, the heartbreak, the joy, the success, whatever it might be. It's been featured on all different types of shows. He's been on the Today Show, ESPN, all over the place. I just need you guys to check it out at artofwords.com. That's artofwords.com. Use code PHLY at checkout for 15% off your purchase.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast here on the Tuesday. I have an Iverson one that he put together, the Art of Words. I would get up and run and look at it, but then it would just be a blank screen. But I have a cool one. Make sure you go check it out.
My dad has this is very middle-aged white guy. He's got a Bruce Springsteen one, which is like the most on-brand thing I could possibly imagine for my dad.
Sounds good. All right, Washington is in fact on the clock as we went to break. So 1st through 5, Cooper Flagg to the Mavs, Dylan Harper to the San Antonio Spurs. Derek selected VJ Edgecombe for the Philadelphia 76ers. Ace Bailey was left. Kyle took him at the Charlotte Hornets spot at pick number 4, and I was selecting for the Utah Jazz and went with Trey Johnson at 5. Derek, you're on the clock. Washington Wizards.
So this is going to make no sense to a lot of people. And actually, Hedva just spoiled my pick. He doesn't fit with Jordan Poole at all. I don't give a darn. I'm not making a top 6 selection based off of Jordan Poole's long-term fit. If Poole only has 2 years left on his contract, if you can't move it, you just take your medicine and you deal with 2 years of horrible defense. But we are going Jeremiah Fears here. I just believe that he has the most upside long-term. I think we need somebody who has a chance of really making this franchise relevant, who has a chance of really being a hub of an offense. And I think Fears is the one that makes the most sense. I think a lot of people look at this and think like, oh, you got to go like some kind of stabilizer, like Kon, just get some professionalism in the building. No, I wanted someone who has a chance to really, really be a hub of an offense. If that means that, you have to move Jordan Poole, oh no, I was going to try to do that anyway. Like I said, I don't make this choice based off of Poole at all. Give me Fears. I think he has a chance to really be good. And when I look at him, he has to improve in a bunch of different areas. But I think all of those are jumps that are reasonable to make. And I think a lot of people look at the 28% 3-point shooting. I don't think that's all that big of a hurdle. When I watch him shoot, I think he shoots a pretty effortless ball. I think coming in there with a 30% usage rate at 17 and not a ton of talent in a really tough conference explains a lot of that. I think Fears is going to be good, or at least has a chance to be really good.
He's going to have an opportunity to make a lot of mistakes there, and that's good because they still have time to build out that roster with those other guys that they did select, Carrington and George. Sarr having a big target there at the rim for him when he does get there, drop it off for a finish. Also, we saw, speaking amongst the three of us and even talking with Bree too, that there are a lot of guys who just simply couldn't finish at the rim for him at Oklahoma. And not to say that Sarr is going to finish all of them, but he should finish a little bit more closer to the rim. So a big target helps him as well.
I would say too, that's a spot where if Derek Queen doesn't get taken there, I could see him falling toward the back half of the lottery. Would be like somewhere in the maybe early teens, because that's a natural fit for him with Sarr. I think it's one of the few young front courts. So that's like, oh, they kind of cover each other's weaknesses to some extent. So if he doesn't go at 6, I could see him tumbling a little bit. But we'll see what happens in our mock draft.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we have now pick number 7, which is Kyle's choice with the New Orleans Pelicans.
Well, I'm glad Derek didn't take this guy because I like this fit a lot. I know it's a player that we've talked about a lot and that Derek is also high on. So I was worried he might take him at 6. But Kon Knueppel is the pick for the Pelicans at number 7. I think it's a tricky spot for New Orleans depending on what they're going to do with Zion. I think Zion being their representative at the draft lottery was pretty interesting, right? Because that's normally not something you would do if you're really itching to trade him. And that signals that maybe Joe Dumars is more open to trying to build around him and trying to make this work with him than we've been led to believe under the previous regime. So what does Zion need? Well, Zion needs shooters, right? Zion needs guys who can space the floor around him. He needs good decision makers. I like Knueppel as a guy who can play off of him. I like him as a guy who can be a potential secondary creator, running some pick and rolls with Yves Missi. And I think as they go through this next year or two where things are really in flux, right? Like DeJounte Murray, Devon, we've talked about it. He might not be back until January, potentially early February. So certainly you could argue for taking a guard of the future if you're bearish on him recovering from that Achilles. But Knueppel fills a need. They need to get better on offense. They got to shoot the ball better. They need good decision makers. I worry about the defensive stuff, especially because there are already some defensive holes in that team. But you put him next to Trey Murphy and Herb Jones and Missi. Like, I think that's a decent amount of protection. So like the fit there a lot, like the player a lot. Pretty easy pick for me.
Nice selection, of course, for Sean Marks. Kyle Neubeck and the Brooklyn Nets there at pick number 7. So pick number 8 for me. Pardon me, I'm Sean Marks here. You're Joe Dumars and company there with the Pelicans. We are going with, at this spot, Kaman Malawach at pick number 8. They have a lot of money to spend this summer, so they can probably go. They need a guard. They need a lead guard to handle things there. So they can probably go spend some money in doing that. But in this particular case, with the also chance that Nick Claxton may be on the move, Kyle's talked about him maybe should be a target for some of those teams in need for a center. Malawach fits the timeline for their whenever they start to get it together, fits the timeline there as a young player. So Malawach to Brooklyn at pick number 8. That's where we're going.
All right, you certainly made my job here at 9 easier because I was going one of 2 big men. You took one, so I am going Colin Morey-Boyles. We obviously, Toronto has a lot of young perimeter talent locked up pretty long term. Really need that kind of defensive monster that can help tie all of that together. Don't have a ton front court outside of Pirtle, who has a year or 2 left. I forget exactly. Probably should know that as a GM of the team. Doesn't matter. You really need a young defensive demon front court player that can play a little bit of 4, play a little 5. We know he can't shoot. We get it. We have had success. Remember Pascal Siakam couldn't shoot when he came here as well. We have had success building that one skill. Outside of that skill, feel really confident in what he can provide. So we are going CMB here at 9.
Nice picks.
So this is I'm at Houston at 10. It's a nice luxury pick, right? They are not in desperate need for just about anything. The question that you would have as a Houston executive is, do we still believe in Reed Shepherd after his rookie year? Like, what drafted him at number 3 last year. How much do you believe in him as a potential point guard of the future, lead initiator? Like, just wasn't really in your rotation for stretches of the year. So do you want to maybe, I wouldn't say overdraft, but do you want to draft another creator, another guard on an offensively challenged team? Or do you just lean more into who you already are? And I think for me, I'm inclined to lean more into who they already are. So I'm taking Carter Bryant. I'm taking the guy who's just a potential ass-kicking defender.
Love
a guy
it.
that Derek, you were muted, whatever you said there. So.
No,
that
I mean
pick.
that was the first surprising pick that we've had, but I love it.
Yeah. So you could justify certainly taking Yakachonis here. Like, I think he makes sense for what they need. I don't think that they're in a headspace where they're abandoning Reed Shepherd after a single season, nor do I think Yakachonis is like a can't miss enough guard prospect to say, yeah, I got to take him here to deal with the offensive concerns. So I take the gigantic athletic wing who is going to have to shoot in order to, deliver on what people want him to do. But I'm taking Carter Bryant at 10.
Love that pick. All right. We might as well run through the lottery before we get to our break. I'm picking for the Blazers at number 11. And with Klingon, we'll talk about him a little bit later in our news and notes. DeAndre Ayton there as well. You think about taking a big man in general and just seeing where things go. But in this particular case, I'm going to go with the guard that just simply fell to me in Yakachonis. Don't know what's going on. Kyle, to your point of the guard situation with Reed Shepherd, Scoot Henderson is coming off the bench now. So that was their second overall pick a few years ago, and it just simply hasn't panned out the way that they needed it to. So Yakachonis here for me, bigger guard, and teaming him up with some of the others that they do have with Sharp, and unclear of Simon's future with this organization. Also not knowing what Jeremy Grant and all is going to be. I'm just simply going to go with the guard here. I have a head coach who is a Hall of Fame point guard who I believe can maybe get a little bit more out of him than maybe Scoot Henderson. And I just simply move on to this being potentially my future lead guard for the Portland Trail Blazers.
So I think this is where Queen probably should go. Probably.
Yeah.
But I'm going Noah Asangwe here.
Oh!
Obviously, the Bulls
I knew
have
it.
White and Giddey on the perimeter. And Giddey played a lot better than I think a lot of people were expecting. And Kobe White had a career second half of the season, especially after the trade. But I think Noah has the most upside here. I think he has the most two-way potential here. I think when you have a chance to draft a guy with his measurables and his fluidity and his athleticism, I think this is a potential home run swing for a team that could really use it. I do think Queen would be a good fit, but I'm going on upside here.
Okay.
So now at 13, I'm torn between the guy who I think is still best player available and Queen, who I really like, and trying to build a team that actually makes any kind of sense or fits together to win. I do think there are some guys I like in terms of their skill set and upside. This is not a player we've talked about a lot because I don't like him in Philadelphia with what they have. But I think if you're still building around Trae Young, you want athletes, front court players who can be potential around the rim targets, guys who will defend, rebound. I'm taking Newell out of Georgia. I think he's a high energy player. I think as you look at, Capella, obviously, probably not going to be there anymore. But even if he was, he's well past his prime. Okongwu is just he's okay. So I'm giving Trae Young another guy who can be a potential rim runner, a play finisher. I like the shooting potential a little bit. I think he's got good form. I think he's got decent free throw numbers. So maybe long term, you could have a guy who could be an occasional pick and pop threat on top of being the around the rim finisher and rebounder. I do think he's certainly a much better offensive rebounder than he is a defensive rebounder. So how you construct lineups around that, I'm not as sure. But I like him in this spot on this team with that lead guard. So taking Newell.
Another good pick there. So I'll round out the lottery with the Spurs as second pick. How about this? I get the Spurs at 2 and I get the Spurs at 14 to close it out. And just because he's still sitting there, I am going Queen. This would be simply a good spot for him where there's not a lot of pressure at this point at 14. We know whose franchise this is. You have back-to-back rookie of the year now that Steph Castle is there. You have Dylan Harper. So also just simply a guy that he can develop, and the things that need to happen for him, he's going now to a spot where Tim Duncan, David Robinson are still a big part of what is going on with San Antonio. Their voices loom large there. And I just look at him and say, you know what, this is a good spot for him to start his career with the San Antonio Spurs. So we go Derek Queen there. Somebody who's coming off the bench. Let's get that clear. But he is now a San Antonio Spurs. So Dylan Harper and Derek Queen at 14 for the San Antonio Spurs.
I love that fit for him. That is that's the type of, obviously any player next to Wemby, it's like you benefit a lot. But
yeah,
if you can get Derek Queen next to a big time defender like that, I think that's about as ideal as it gets for him in the front court.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we have the rest of the first round to get through. And as you can tell, Kyle's first, I'm second, Derek is third in the list. Derek will come back and start off the rest of the draft. Picking at number 15, Derek will be selecting for the OKC Thunder, starting off the Western Conference Finals tonight. So Derek is on the clock for the Oklahoma City Thunder, who, yes, all they need is more talent on that basketball team. So Derek will make the choice when we get back, and we're going to run through the rest of the first round right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. All right, folks, the weather, once it really starts to pick up and get a little bit warm once again, I've been telling you about my good people at Mando. Don't worry, Nona and Val and all the ladies, Mary, Jess will keep it clean. I won't get all crazy, but Mando is the men's deodorant brand that's hyper-focused on keeping every aspect of a man's body smelling fresh.
Look at this guy with the props on the show.
Come on, product
man.
placement,
Come on.
man. Look at
Who
that.
does it better than Devon Givens?
Listen, their scents are geared towards men with options like bourbon leather, clover woods. I have the bourbon leather right here, the invisible spray. Mount Fuji and Pro Sport as well. And it's pretty good. Like I said, the last time we talked about this, I've sprayed this and gotten some compliments from the smell from Mando. Now, it overtly calls out the more colorful parts of men's bodies, such as the pits, the belly buttons, the cracks behind you, the lower regions for you, and more right there to make sure you smell good. Get a little sweaty running along the drive, playing some pickup basketball, whatever you're doing, some tennis. And you're like, you know what? Let me just spray some of this stuff. Just get it in there. Get it all in the right spots. You want to try America's #1 whole body deodorant formula right now, where you can find them at Walmart, Target, and other retailers across the country for the best deals. Go to shopmando.com. That's once again, shopmando.com. 12 hours after a shower, the average man's grundle odor level was about a 5 out of a 10. And with Mando, that lowers that level to 0 out of 10. The Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with the solid stick deodorant, cream tube, the deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash and the deodorant wipes as well, and free shipping. So use code PHLY at shopmando.com, because that starter pack, new customers get $5 off with the exclusive code that we have here, of course, at PHLY. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando.
And fellas, we've all been there. Some of us a little more recently than others. Your parlay's one leg away, and then a relief pitcher gives up a walk-off bomb in the ninth. Heartbreak. If that sounds familiar, the HOF app is built to fix that. Started by 2 lifelong sports fans who also happen to be Ivy League grands, HOF makes parlay research smarter, faster, and data-driven. This is not your buddy's group chat full of hot takes, which again, I think we all kind of have as well. You want to ignore those guys. This is a full analytics engine. The HOF app gives you access to advanced stats, historical data, and powerful tools to help you bet smarter. The app is built for the everyday sports fan, so it's easy and intuitive to use. You'll get an idea of your parlay's chances to hit and identify weak legs so you can weed them out before you place them. Whether it's the MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, or college sports, the app gives you beautiful charts, clean visuals, and real insight, not hype. They believe anything that books know, you should know too, because parlays don't have to be dumb bets, which with HOF, they aren't. With a 4.9 rating in the App Store and over 6,000 5-star reviews, it's safe to say HOF has already helped a lot of people bet smarter. For a limited time, our listeners not only get a 7-day free trial, but they also get 50% off their first month when they use the code PHLY at checkout. Just download the HOF app on iOS and Android, or visit HOFbets.com, enter code PHLY, and you're all set.
A great
Welcome
joke
back.
from INS in the chat regarding the Mando ad read, Devon. INS says Grundle's mother is from Beowulf.
Oh,
Where are my English majors at? I know there are probably 3 of you in here with me. So shout out to Beowulf. Read that one too many times.
shout out to Beowulf. Look at that. Quick super chats we have from Shahid and Brian Pumper. Shahid says, stressing about the bust potential of a lottery pick less than a year after signing Paul George equals the chaos of the NBA.
Got that right.
And Brian Pumper says, Derek, I'm just saying Derek because you picked at 3, but he says irresponsible pick at 3. That would be the ultimate doomsday scenario. 6'2", 6'3", and 6'4". That's your starters, 1 through 3. Bullies meet Winnie Hutt juniors.
Picking someone you fundamentally don't believe with because you're worried about fit, that is the ultimate doomsday scenario. So I disagree with you, Pump.
All right, there you go. Thanks for the super chats, people. We appreciate it. Let's get back
also,
to
like VJ was like 6'5.5" with like almost a 6'8" wingspan. So look, he's much taller than Maxey and McCain.
Yep. Let's get back to the draft. Pick number 15. Derek, you're the Oklahoma City Thunder.
All right. OKC is in such a unique spot. They have so many picks. I don't think, what do they have? 3 in this draft? Two or 3? I forget exactly.
2 in the first
Probably
round, and they have a second round pick. They would have had 3.
They're not keeping all of them.
Didn't fall. No.
They don't really have team needs. They're a juggernaut set up for the next decade. So I'm going for home run swings here. Noah Penda, a 6'8".
Oh, wow. I had him as a back end of the first target for some teams that I'm responsible for.
When you look at his defensive upside, he is off the charts. Like from versatility, from defensive playmaking, I think he can be an absolute monster defensively. He has some weaknesses, like pretty big ones, especially ball handling, but really shooting. But he started playing a lot better in the second half of the season. He makes some really good passes, which I think really do tend to showcase, all right, this is a guy who processes the game well, shows up on both ends of the floor. If he fixes that shot, I think he could be a real good two-way player. Is he going to be a star? No, probably not. But he can be one of the better defensive players and more versatile defensive players in this class. And like I said, I do believe in the passing and the playmaking and the creativity in that regard. Got to improve his handle. Got to improve his three-point shot. But if he does that, I think he can be a long-term contributor on a really good team.
Such an OKC pick there by Derek in the Oklahoma City Thunder. Good call.
Yeah, that was, I'm pretty sure I had him written down as like I think I'm responsible for the Celtics pick at 28. And I was like, consider him there. Yeah. Derek really jumping up. Noah Penda. All right. So I'm on the clock. This is my first of 2 picks for the Orlando Magic at 16. And anybody who's listened to me talk about the Orlando Magic knows there is one thing that I think they need. Guards. Please, for the love of God, get a guard on this team. So this player is someone I like a lot, but he had a pretty scary combine with the measurables. Measured in at just over 6 foot. I want to say 6 foot and maybe half an inch barefoot. But high field player, very good shooter. Somebody who you can insulate with all the defensive coverage and defensive help you have there, the size, the athleticism. I'm taking Jace Richardson, sending him to Orlando, and hoping that he can go there and make those boys just a little bit better on offense and that they can protect him enough on defense that his biggest concerns are not that big of a deal.
Sounds good. Yeah, I just out of the lottery too, but still in the teens, which is a good spot for him there in Orlando. I'm picking at number, 17 for the Minnesota Timberwolves, gearing up to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder, start off the Western Conference Finals. I'm going with here, and by the way, folks, I've been following my All-City Network draft guide that Derek Bodner and Will Gottlieb put together at allphly.com. So if you want to keep along and you want to stay away from there, no other ones exist. This is the one that exists at All City Network, of course, and that is the draft guide that is put together, the NBA Die Hard draft guide, your ultimate resource for the 2025 NBA draft, Will Gottlieb and Derek Bodner. So go check it out. so you can get ready for the NBA draft and keep along with us here, even right now. I'm going for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm actually going here, and I'm taking Danny Wolf at the spot right now from Michigan for Minnesota at 17. They have a unique thing that we saw last year with Karl Anthony Towns, of course, where we talk about the double bigs and all. He's a unique one where he can handle the basketball like a guard. But with it, on the defensive end, when they decide to go small, while you can still have Randall and Naz Reid out there on the floor, he can be that replacement for Rudy Gobert at that center position, if you will, or just the versatility of their front court because of that, knowing that they have DiVincenzo, Anthony Edwards, Mike Conley. They drafted Dillingham as well. Maybe he has a bigger role next season. And you have Alexander Walker as well on that team. They have a decent amount of guards that can handle the rock. Jaden McDaniels as well. I'm going with Danny Wolf here at this spot.
All right. We are back on the clock for the Wizards. And again, the Wizards, I don't care about anyone on their roster. I just fundamentally do not care. They need as much talent as they can possibly get. This is a guy who, he didn't play a lot this year.
I know exactly who you're picking.
And he doesn't have a lot of games against high-level competition. He was playing in the Big Sky Conference before transferring. But we are going with Cedric Coward here, a 6'7" wing who can shoot the lights out and was one of the real winners at the Combine. 7'2" wingspan for a 6'7" player. Absolutely incredible. Thinks it gives him a little bit of two-way potential. He can get to his spots off the dribble, hit that pull-up jumper. Really, I think one of the players who probably has more upside. There's just so much uncertainty that people, I think, just aren't 100% willing to buy into it. I will say before this past year, one of his real weaknesses was passing and playmaking. He was a little bit of a black hole offensively. That being said, when he made that transition to Washington State, he started to show signs of life as a playmaker. And if he puts that together, I think he can be one of the better offensive options here drafted after the lottery. So we're going with Cedric Coward. Also, just a Class A name. Absolutely love the puns that will come from that, especially if it's not a team that
shoot
I have to
a three,
Coward.
So I'm on the clock at 19 for Brooklyn. Devon, you were the one who selected for Brooklyn at 8, right? Can you remind me who you took at 8?
At 8 for Brooklyn. Sorry, I have it written down. I had Malawach.
That's okay. So that's what I thought. So we drafted our center of the future. Hopefully, guy's gonna protect the rim, all that. You really, it's in a similar spot as Washington. I think you have to take home run swings. I think you have to say we're starting from scratch. A couple guys in play here for me. I'm gonna go not with the kid from BYU, the Russian, who I think I was considering here. I'm going with Nolan Traore. I think he's a potential lead guard candidate. I think in the spot that they're in with a big man who needs a lot of his offense created for him, I think getting a guy who is a creative passer, someone who can attack you off the dribble with both hands, make playmaking reads with both hands, was a good finisher. And I believe from January through early April, had a really good stretch of shooting the ball on top of all the other stuff he does, because the shot, I think, is one of the big questions. If he is able to shoot at let's say, league average level, I think the rest of his tools and the playmaking stuff will carry him. I think that'll make him an NBA player. The other stuff, it's really the shooting as a major swing skill. So I want to make Malawach's life easier with a real deal playmaker in this spot. So I'm taking the kid that if he has a shooting breakthrough, I think can exceed the value of this draft spot. He was formerly viewed as potential top 5, top 8 pick in this draft. So while his star has fallen a little bit, I'm going to bet on the talent, and I'm going to bet on a nice pick and roll combo to start off our rebuild in Brooklyn.
All right. I'm picking for the Miami Heat at pick number 20. Since we're getting on the back end of our time, I am going to go to BYU here, Kyle. I'm taking Agor. Heat culture right here, man. Agor them in there.
Does heat culture include dribbling against pressure, or how does that work?
they'll get him right? They'll get him right with their player development. Agor goes to the Miami Heat. Yes.
I think while Yegor has fallen quite a bit from where he was at very beginning of this season when he had a huge start to the year, I think there's a case he's the best passer and playmaker in this draft if everything else kind of comes along. It's just I'm really worried about the shot creation stuff. So if he goes to the right spot, that there's not a lot of pressure on him right away, and he can improve that shot, a lot of things will open up for him.
Listen, he's got 2 all-stars there that should not be his, shouldn't be his problem right away. So we'll see where it goes.
You're killing me. I really wanted that point guard to try to maybe create some shots here for the big guy and maybe get him back on track. Really wanted that point guard. So I will go Ben Suraf from Israel. He played in Germany this past year. Really creative as a playmaker. Can get to his spots in the mid-range. I think started to turn the corner as a shooter, especially in mid-range shots towards the end of the season. 3-point shot is a huge question mark. Body's a huge question mark. Can he hold up physically? He's pretty good finishing inside. Certainly has a floater game, but it's going to be much tougher at this level. There are some risks, but I think the playmaking talent here outweighs them. So we will go with Ben Suraf for the Jazz.
All right. At 22, I am once again in charge of the Atlanta Hawks. I don't know how I drew the Hawks twice. That's just how the board falls. I'm not going to overcomplicate this one. I'm taking Rasheer Fleming out of St. Joe's. I think this is a good spot for him. I think because they have the engine of the offense in Trae Young, certainly you're going to put the ball in the hands of guys like Reese Shea. Dyson Daniels is going to run the offense a decent amount. I think having as many play finishers, whether that's at the rim or beyond the 3-point line, is a nice, I wouldn't even say luxury. It's a nice thing to have. And I believe in the shot for Fleming. I am worried about his ability to create shots for himself at the next level. But you give me a guy like that with those physical tools, the developing shot, and I think in a situation where you limit his responsibilities on offense, it puts him in a good spot. I think Atlanta is a nice fit for him. So I'm sending him on down to Atlanta. Good luck, Rasheer Fleming. I know a lot of Sixers fans are kind of hoping that maybe they can steal him with maybe a trade back into the end of the first, or if he fell all the way to 35. But I think based on his combine and the production he showed last year, I don't see him getting out of the first round, if I had to guess.
Do you remember the last St. Joe's Hawks player they drafted?
Was that... Why am I blanking on it? DeAndre Bembry.
That's
right?
it. Yep, DeAndre Bembry. Yep, last one that they selected. I'm up next for the Indiana Pacers at pick number 23, and I'm just going some more front court help here, and I'm taking Thomas Sorboy here as some
good value.
Some backup help here for Miles Turner. And in the event that things get too expensive for them down the line, that they decide, we've heard it for years where they were always trading him. Now he's gotten to back-to-back conference finals, but it doesn't mean that things won't get a little bit too expensive. Maybe down the line, I am going here with the big fella from Georgetown and going Sorber for the Indiana Pacers.
All right, we are back on the clock for the Thunder. And again, we believe in home run swings and certainly players who we think can help us defensively in the playoffs. We are going with Miles Bird. Now, he is a massive question mark offensively. I cannot overlook that. Shot 38% from the field, 30% from the 3-point line. We do think there are some pretty good indicators. He took almost 60% of his shots from 3-point range. So that's going to drag down, if he doesn't make those shots, it's going to drag down field goal percentage. He's been a good free throw shooter, but he has so much defensive playmaking upside and such great size there at 6'7". He really is a ball hawk defensively. He's engaged. He makes great reads defensively. We think eventually that shot is going to come around. Again, not necessarily sure there's star offensive upside here. Not only is he a shooting, but the ball handling, the finishing at the rim. There's a lot of warts here. But if he can just make that shot with those physical tools, we think he's going to be a good player for a long time. So we're going Miles Bird.
Like that one. And once again, I have to step up to the plate for a team I've already drafted for. So this is my second pick for the Orlando Magic. Had I not taken Jace Richardson, I might take another small or scoring guard here, because they are in desperate need of a guy to help run the offense. Given that I took Richardson, and given the team identity there, I'm going to take a proven contributor, a guy who I think can be a two-way player, upperclassman as well. So somebody that I think can step in and hopefully play right away. Nick Clifford out of Colorado State. Pretty seamless fit there. Think he can play in any number of lineups. I actually think he fell further than I was expecting. I've been seeing him getting some, like just after the lottery buzz as of late, maybe like 15 to 20 or so. So we're really happy to see him at the 25th pick and think he's a great addition to our program.
Yep. All right. Good stuff. All right. Back-to-back picks here for the Nets. That's with me and Derek here at picks. What is this? Picks 26 and 27. So I'm just going to go and start things off, Derek, and I'm going to go Liam McNeely, three-point specialist there. And we already added a big man at the top with Malawach. I selected him. Kyle went with, who was that, Coward that you went with there for the last pick?
No. I took Traore.
All right. So now we're going to go with the specialist from the outside. And who knows what happens down the line with Cameron Johnson. So I'm going Liam McNeely from UConn.
We will go Will Riley from Illinois. Not sure it necessarily. Yeah, not sure it necessarily fits if you're just looking at like positionally. But at this point, just going mostly best player available. Like Devon said, good shooter, confident shooter, really confident shooter.
Yeah.
Who has the chance to play both on and off ball. It's really just like I said, an upside play. We feel pretty comfortable with him all the way down here at 27. So that's where we're going.
All right. So I have the Boston Celtics at 28. And I have half a mind to simply sabotage them and take a player I don't believe in to really inflict more suffering. I'll take a guy that I think, again, similar to the Clifford pick, although this kid's much younger, valued higher than this range in a lot of public big boards. Taking Phylon out of Alabama, 6'3" guard, good floater game, pretty aggressive defender, like fits their identity of guys who are going to get into you and then give you problems on the other end. He will probably have a decent amount of shot creating opportunities next year because I suspect they're probably shopping the likes of Drew Holiday and some of these other guys this offseason. Jason Tatum being out all next year, there'll be time to develop him. So while there are some questions surrounding him, I think he's one of the best talents left on the board. So give me him.
All right. Pick number 29 for me. I'm the Phoenix Suns. Just a mess going on there. So let me straighten things out with some of the mess. And I'm going with a national champion and going with Walter Clayton Jr. at pick number 29 for the Phoenix Suns.
All right. We'll round out the first half with Tahad Pettiford, a guard.
Love him.
Out of Auburn. Really just think it's a upside play here. He certainly has a chance to develop. We think that he can certainly score, a guy who can really shoot from the perimeter, and we'll try to make it work. Young, has a lot of rounding out to do, but I thought he finished the season pretty well, and we will go with Pettiford there.
Well, big fan of Pettiford. Nice spot for him. And we are going into overtime as we finish off the show here at allphly.com. We thank everyone on the television side for hanging out with us there. If you want to continue to watch the show, head on over to allphly.com to finish the rest of PHLY Sixers podcast, where we have just selected the full first round in the NBA draft with the Sixers at number 3. Derek Bodden went with VJ Edgecombe, Ace Bailey 4 to the Charlotte Hornets. That was courtesy of Kyle Newbeck. and with that selection. So there we have it.
It wasn't courtesy of Derek Bodner putting dates in the top 4.
Hey, I will say, I got this show a lot of money because Pump just keeps throwing in those super chats. So it has been a good financial decision for the show today.
On Pettiford, real quick, by the way, as we're wrapping up here, he made some noise at the combine last week. He had a really good first day at the scrimmages and was not good in the second day of the scrimmages. But I want to just give a glimpse for people into what actually matters during this part of the pre-draft process. I don't think any team is moving Pettiford based on him playing well one day of the scrimmages. I do think, in fact, I know there are people who work for teams who saw him play really well on day 1 and then saw him return to try to go and play again on day 2 as I like that as
most
a competitor.
People would not have.
I like the character that shows to say, I'm not just taking my foot off the gas. Now he ends up playing poorly on day 2, but I think it reflects a person that they say, if a player of this type is going to make it, you got to have certain intangible qualities. And that's an example of something that might not translate. Like you see on social, it's like, a highlight reel from the combine scrimmages. Like NBA teams don't really care about that stuff. They do care about a kid who says, yeah, let's do it again. I want to try to prove myself out here.
Yeah. No, if there's something I'm concerned about, it's the fact that he's sub 6 foot and without shoes. That's it. But no, in terms of his shooting, in terms of his ability to get to his spots, I think he's got a real good live dribble. If anyone is going to make it work, I think he has a chance. But it's tough to be a sub 6 foot guard in this league, no doubt.
Yeah, it is. Real talent, though. Any names that we threw out there, guys, that while we will talk about the 35th overall pick and give some names that we like, just to kind of someone that we may have thought about, this guy's falling. Do I trade back into the back end of the first round for any of the players that we did throw here in the back end of the first round?
In terms of the guys who actually went,
we selected, yes.
Yeah. I think Clifford is a guy who's interesting to me. He's an older prospect, but somebody who can play with a bunch of different combinations of lineups. That's why I liked him in Orlando. It's hard without I'm trying to think all the names, all the guys in front of us. I mean, McNeely falling that far, I don't like him all that much as a prospect, but if he gets into the late 20s, I think the size and the shooting is at least like you consider it there. Derek hates McNeely.
I can't stand
him. He's not his guy at all, and he's not my type of player generally. But if you're telling me he falls into the late 20s,
and we selected him at 27, so yes,
right. So if he gets into that range, and you say, we'll give up 35 and maybe another like okay-ish second round pick in the future, I don't think that would be crazy. Of the available, I don't want to spoil our show for later, but another guy who I'd say slightly surprised he didn't get picked, but will definitely be on my list of potential candidates at 35 is Yaxel Lendeborg out of UAB. Whether he fits here again, I don't know, but I think talent-wise, I like him a lot. So we'll get more into that later on.
Absolutely. All right. Just some quick news and notes here as we get ready to round things out here. The NBA did announce the all-rookie team today. Earlier today at 2 p.m., the all-rookie team was announced. And part of the team, first team, is Steph Castle, who was the rookie of the year. First overall pick, Zachary Richache from Atlanta. Jalen Wells, who was the second-round pick for the Memphis Grizzlies, made the first team. Zach Edey and Alex Sarr, they round out the first team. Second team, Khalil Ware, Buzelis from Chicago, Misi from New Orleans, Klingon from Portland, and Bub Carrington from Washington. And of the Philadelphia 76ers, yes, Jared McCain most likely would have made it had he not gotten injured earlier in the year. He did get total points of 7, 1 first-place vote, 5 second-place votes, and Justin Edwards received 1 second-place vote as well. Guys, just your thoughts on all-rookie team.
Jared McCain would have been first team with a bullet. So
pretty much
that's all I really take away from it. It's not a particularly inspiring group, but we knew that would be the case. Wasn't a strong rookie class. So not a whole lot from me on that one.
Rookie team in our hearts. That's all that matters.
No doubt. No doubt. But Derek, you mentioned Pump with the super chat.
Got one more to yell at me.
Yeah, you successfully pulled off a Sam Hinkie, man. You drafted 3 guards in a row, sir. Nick Nurse 4-guard lineups. I hope you're happy.
Well, I am happy. Thank you for asking. No, I'm glad that you are concerned. Again, I'm going to reiterate this. That didn't work out because 2 of the 3 centers Sam took weren't the best prospect available at that time. They weren't even good NBA players. Nerlens was serviceable. The point is that was a talent evaluation mistake. That was not a 3-center mistake. Yeah, there would have been complications with 3-center. First of all, guards aren't the same as centers. It's a lot easier to play multi-guard lineups than it is multi-center lineups, especially back then, especially when those centers don't shoot. Especially when you're talking about VJ, who can play alongside any of your other 3 guards. Not necessarily 2 of them at the same time, but he can play alongside any of the other 3. This isn't even remotely comparable. And again, that was a talent evaluation mistake, especially with Okafor. Not necessarily oh, well, they drafted players and they didn't fit. No, they just didn't fit in the NBA. Also, I want one other thing, because Pumper then said, I don't like wings. No, you've got it backwards. Ace being a wing is the only thing keeping him in contention in my mind for this number 3 pick. That is the only thing.
See, when people come at me, I feel like I've gotten a lot of the Ace people in my Twitter mentions and everywhere else. I'm the middle of the road. Devon's in the middle camera wise. I'm middle of the road on Ace. Derek's the guy. Go yell at him. Stop yelling at me. I may be an Ace skeptic, but I'm at least I'm hedging my bets a little bit. What Derek left out of that long soliloquy, by the way, the second center you took was the most important one.
Yes.
It wasn't the first. If you had said, hey, we took Nerlens Noel, let's call it a day, you would have been fucked.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
What are we talking about?
No, anyway. And look, I'm not dropping Ace out in part because, like I said, there's positional scarcity. There's the defensive impact I think he can make. And because if he does reach that elite high-level 3-point shooter and 2-way player, I'm interested in that. But like I said, when I took him, I think the floor is much lower than people think. I think the odds of him being a star-level player are much lower than people think. And I have very serious concerns. And I will say, I'll be wrong all the time. What I will not do is not put in the work. I've watched, I think, 22 of their games so far. I haven't gotten more confident since watching them. I haven't, it's not like I've been oh, well, maybe I was wrong. No, I'm concerned. I'm very concerned. I would love nothing more, to be clear, nothing more than the Sixers drafting Ace Bailey and him turning into prime Paul George. Absolutely nothing more. It makes team building super easy. Makes our lives better because you care about the sport. It would be fantastic. But I have to sit here and just be honest. I don't have a lot of confidence. And I'm not just going to pick him because he's tall. That's not a good enough reason.
Kyle, we need this, man. Now we just need it just for the show content for the next 3 years of Ace Bailey on the Sixers. Just to have.
Listen, I'm just saying. There's
Pump in the chat saying prime T-Mac. Sir, I beg you, watch one Rutgers game.
I didn't go that far.
Just one.
There's a guy, Jacob, who watches the show, who came in and said another stream of hating on Ace. He left the stream, tweeted at me in all caps, I hate Ace, 3 or 4 straight times. My brother in Christ, I drafted Ace in the mock draft. I took him. Leave me the fuck alone. I'm not the guy. I'm not just take a goddamn chill pill for 8 seconds. Use your ears and listen to the words that come out of my mouth.
Ace is going to end up being one of the top 5 or 6 prospects on my big board. It's not like I'm saying he shouldn't be a lottery pick.
He was number 4. He was number 4 on your big board. So is that the same guy, Kyle, who said that he jumped into this? How does this mock draft go? And Ace Bailey hasn't been picked yet. Somebody said that earlier, and I'm like, maybe they just tuned in because we did select him. Kyle did at 4 for the Charlotte Hornets. So
come on, man. I have concerns about Ace, and I vocalized them. He still is a player that I think is worth considering. discussions contain multitudes and subtlety and context. If you actually listen to other people, it's not just you take this guy, you love him. You don't take this guy, you hate him. We try to do a little bit more nuance around here, including Derek, even though he apparently has been branded with the scarlet letter of #1 ace hater on the show.
And Gene says, no content picks. Gene, haven't you been following? You've been with us the entire time. You know it's all about us. It's not about them. It's about us.
Yeah,
and we need
Eugene
to see Derek
said,
go
"Let's
crazy."
talk Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark next." I listen. These guys will vouch for this. I said yesterday, I'm officially out on discussing the WNBA after the 48 hours of just war from a single foul over the weekend. Y'all got it.
I have thoughts, but I'll leave that to myself right now. Conference championship gets underway, starting with the Western Conference Finals tonight, guys. OKC, as we expected. They had the sweat to get there, but they're there. Minnesota, who we all had knocked out in the first round against the Lakers, they advanced. Second year in a row, they're in the Western Conference Finals. Derek, how you see this one playing out?
I mean, I'm just going with who I think is the better team. I think OKC had, I think them having to go to 7 and win that game and getting really pushed to the brink, I think that's great for them. I think they have the depth to make a long run. If they were going to, was I nervous there midway through that series? Of course. But I do think, I don't want to say character building per se, because I think that can get a little bit reductive. But having to come through in a situation like that, if there's one thing this team was missing, it was confidence in yourself, having been there before. I think now I expect them to win the title.
I think Derek nailed it, right?
And I assume you're talking about OKC because I was in part starting to type to Brian Pumper in the chat. So I was only half listening. So yeah, okay.
OKC, Minnesota, yes.
Best team left. Minnesota. So here's the thing, right? Oklahoma City disproved some of the negatives or questions that people had about them coming into the playoffs by winning that Denver series. Albeit, they got a fortunate break with the Gordon health, and Porter was certainly not anywhere close to 100%. But Minnesota also has surprised a lot of people, right? We were pretty firmly on the Lakers in round 1. They dealt with them pretty easily. They get lucky with the injuries in round 2 themselves with Steph, but they took care of business. And I think between the depth, the defense, they have guys that they can throw it. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And if they can, here's the problem I think you run into if you're Minnesota. Oklahoma City has already proven they can win a playoff series shooting like crap for most of the series, right? And I just that's the only way you can beat them, because their defense is going to travel. They are the best defense in the league. They're the best defense in the league by a lot. And I'm not sure how much worse they can make Oklahoma City shoot, if at all, than Denver did. So you really are just kind of praying that they have an all-time disaster offensive series. That said, I respect Ant and what they have there enough to say this probably goes at least 6 games, but I'm still pretty firmly in the Thunder camp on this one.
First of all, I have paper around me, but I don't want to move around and try to reach for all these papers behind me, and I don't have one right here in front of me. I have my apology form for Julius Randle already written out and signed, because
I mean, I've got to sign that one too, buddy.
Okay, all 3 of us.
I'll bring it in. I'll bring it into the office.
Use the DocuSign and we'll do it all at once.
Because, hey, man, the reason why I think all 3 of us said Los Angeles in the first round was really because of him. Mm-hmm. And him alone. We thought the talent was there because we saw them do what they did a year ago in the postseason. It was about Julius Randle. So while we were all critical of him, he has been phenomenal during the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. And really, they have hit their peak of who they are with him playing that way. So the vision that Tim Connolly saw, them ironing things out, because it did not get off to a good start. It did not at all get off to a good start. But he corrected some things. They learned how to play off of one another, and man, they are really hitting at the right time. So I will also say that when Kyle speaks of, or Derek talks about pushing them to the 7th game, Denver, and how they had to respond to that. I got to go back to a year ago then. Even though DiVincenzo and Randall weren't there, these guys were pushed and made it to the conference finals. So when they did make it to the conference finals, Dallas handled them. So when we talk about learning, they learned last season how to play in this particular round. I think the opponent is better, which is why I'm going to pick OKC in 6. But I do respect Minnesota, as Kyle pointed out, and Derek pointed out, both of you, that this is not going to be easy for OKC because Minnesota has not only been here, they weren't supposed to be here this time around because we weren't the only ones who thought that they would be out, and they are clicking at all levels. And look, man, I don't know how the Rudy Gobert thing plays out, but he's been also pretty good out there for Minnesota as well. So I'll say OKC in 6, not just because we selected them at the beginning of the year, but just because they are the best team left right now in the Western Conference. I think that they take things against Minnesota in 6. So it should be a good one, though. Should be a fun one. Yeah. And we'll preview the finals when we get there. We'll talk about the Eastern Conference tomorrow when we have some more time to do so. But this was a fun show. Derek Bodner had the 3rd overall pick for the Sixers, selected VJ Edgecombe. That's why he was yelled at. And here we are wrapping up the show on this Tuesday as we had some fun during our mock draft. So we appreciate everybody hanging out with us. And Kyle, let's say goodbye to everybody with the world famous roll call.
Of course. And I do have to start with, because we had a member of the Discord reach out and say they heard that the audio only listeners could be included in the roll call. So Jeff 3010 nice. In our Discord, a diehard who is checking in from France, who listens to the show all the time, including when it's Devon, you, and Rich doing post-game shows, says that we have helped keep his passion for the team and the league alive, despite the Sixers being what they are over the last year. So thank you to Jeff. Thank you to all of you.
What up, Jeff?
For checking in. Even the people who are yelling at me for being an Ace hater when I am not an Ace hater, please direct all your complaints to Derek Bodner, the guy on the opposite side of this video. Find him on Twitter. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, everyone, for being here today, for hanging out, going through all 30 first-round picks. We have some second-round thoughts coming at you later this week. In fact, probably as soon as tomorrow. Thank you to Hedfa, to Igavini, to Ramid,
what up, Hedfa?
To Bootzilla, to Monty Marr, to Eugene Ross, to what INS, up, to Darkness.
Turn the lights down for the conversation of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese.
Oh,
let's
boy.
Turn the lights down on that one. Turn it out.
Turning the lights down. Front office, my girl Winona,
hey,
Freddie
Nona.
Powell, Mary Overfield, B
Mary.
Pump, the #1 Derek Bodner hater in all of PHLY, apparently.
Hey, gave us a lot of money. He loves us.
Yeah.
Jess with the Purple Heart. Thank you, Jess, for stopping through. SB Cole, you better love somebody.
Love
Sean
somebody,
Ford,
love somebody, love somebody.
Sal, X-Man, Just Tom.
X.
Who else? The letter O, the letter N. Listen, I told you that Sesame Street news yesterday. We got all the letters of the alphabet. We could start making those really elaborate videos where it's like, what do they call those? Rube Goldberg machines that leads to just a singular letter. Trying to collect all the letters by the end of this week. We'll see. Who else we got in here? Money Marr. If I didn't shout out Money, obviously. Mellow 3-point.
Mellow, my man.
What
up, Mid?
We got Mom's grandchildren. What's up to Mom?
Hello.
I can't scroll any further, gang. So that might be it for today on the names and the call outs, the shout outs. I think Val is probably here. Riaz is always here.
Yes. What up, Riaz? What up, Freddie?
John of the Tundra.
John of the Hills. Yep.
Shout out to Jay of the Jungle. You know you're my guy. Thank you, everybody, for being here. On your way out, if you have not already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live, and hit the thumbs up button, even if you don't like the draft picks that were made, because you want to say thank you to super producer Bree for making it all happen. Our president of basketball operations, you know she's holding it down. Once again, as always, back tomorrow, 3 o'clock, Monday through Friday. Take it or leave it. Like the Sixers will take or leave Ace Bailey. Until then, we'll see you.
See ya.
all city like the mayor.